Mahajan, Ms. Shweta Mantri, and Ms. Rupmani Chetri for taking out their valuable time to record these messages. Thank you very much. We shall now begin our technical session 3 on the need for periodic assessment of inclusion, access, and safety in cities. The session intends to discuss the need for an assessment framework to nudge and streamline aspects of inclusion, universal access, and safety into the city development. I am pleased to share that under the strategic partnership with IIT Kharagpur, BASIC program has developed one such framework as Inclusive City Framework launched during the last session. This session will be chaired by Professor Debolina Kundu. Dr. Kundu is a professor and one of our senior members at the National Institute of Urban Affairs. A vast professional experience in the field of development studies. Ma'am, may I please request your presence on the dais? I would also request our esteemed panelists, Shri Ranjan Mukherjee, Shri R. Srinivas, Shri P.P. Singh, and Shri Subhash Chandra Vashisht to kindly join us on the dais for the session. I believe some of our panelists are also joining us virtually. A very big welcome to all of you. Air Commander Ranjan Mukherjee, State Commissioner for PWD, National Capital Territory of Delhi, has been a commissioned officer of the Indian Air Force with 35 years of multifaceted experience in both civil and defense administration and management. Mr. R. Srinivas, Town and Country Planner, TCPO, is a well-known name in the planning fraternity and has been involved in the many aspirational projects of the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. Mr. P.P. Singh, Chief Town Planner, State of Haryana, brings with him more than 25 years of experience of working in different aspects of town planning. Mr. Subhash Chandra Vashisht is a lawyer and a specialist in accessibility, universal design, and diversity inclusion. To begin this session, we will also have a short presentation by Professor Hemanti Banerjee and Professor Shubhrato Chattopadhyay from IIT Kharagpur, followed by a panel discussion. I would now like to request Dr. Kundu to set the expectations for the session with her address and initiate the session. Thank you.
Thank you. As I think all of us know that India is moving on an upward urban trajectory and making holistic efforts to promote inclusive development through Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas for an urban population which is increasing, and also there is an urban expansion happening across the country. And to deal with these challenges, the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs has launched several urban development programs, all on a mission mode. And as you all must be aware that this new wave of urbanization is expected to bring about both opportunities and challenges. And here in India, like most of the other countries, cities are also being treated as engines of economic growth. The adoption of the inclusive agenda led to the stakeholder consultation like many others. One was held in 2018, which was chaired by our Honorable Minister Sri Hardeep Singh Puri ji. And this program led to the initiation of the program BASIC, as you all know, which was formulated on the recommendations of this consultation. It was also discussed that there is a need to bring about a holistic outlook towards inclusion in the policies and guidelines of the government, and that too at all levels. It's not only at the central level, but also the state and the local levels, and to develop stringent monitoring and evaluation system. For making this happen, I think data availability at the granular level and at regular intervals is a key challenge. And this data availability is needed for across all sectors and with a focus on persons with disabilities. Concurrently, as we all realize, there is also a need to formulate evidence-based policies through updated, accurate, and unbiased data. In one of our research publications recently on the Handbook on Urban Statistics 20, which we brought out in 2020, we tried to study and analyze various components of the urban ecosystem, and that too had one section dedicated to data on persons with disabilities, where we found that both from the census and from the NSSO, there are various limitations on the availability of disaggregated data. I'm happy to see that BASIC, in collaboration with IIT Kharagpur, has developed a comprehensive inclusive city framework to assess different aspects of urban development. I look forward to the presentation, which will throw light to deliberate further today in this panel discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I now invite Professor Subroto Chattopadhyay and Professor Hemanti Banerjee to kindly make the presentation. Professor Chattopadhyay, former head of department and dean of alumni affairs, IIT Kharagpur, brings over with him 33 years of experience. Professor Hemanti Banerjee brings with her expertise in universal design and over 13 years of teaching and industrial experience. Okay, you can just start.
Full screen है क्या?
Yes, screen.
Okay. A very good afternoon, and thank you very much for this opportunity. We have had a very stimulating and a very dynamic day till now, and I'm extremely happy that the government took a step like this, which is so important, and two extremely important documents got released just a short while back. So taking a cue from there, I would just like to highlight a couple of bullet points, and then I would request my colleague, Professor Hemanti Banerjee, to take you through the short presentation that we have on our work. So the first thing is, I heard about what everybody had to say about accessibility. And if you ask me, after having worked in this, what is accessibility to me? Well, I think that my 81 years old mother, who stays alone in Kolkata, and I stay 150 kilometers away, if she doesn't feel threatened, and if she feels that she is able to get her medicine, she's able to get her, ATM serviced, or even her life certificate done without depending on me, then that's accessible to some extent. What is accessible to me? If my maidservant doesn't have to depend on me for depositing her or opening her bank account or giving her advice, if she is not in awe that what is a bank and what is a form filling up, then that is accessible. So, and sometimes I question myself, am I accessible or am I feeling accessible? I mean, the first time when I saw landing in the US that I have to do all my, scanning, my boarding pass, everything, there's nobody whom I can go and ask for a boarding pass. I felt that I have to learn. I was at awe. So we are changing, our concepts keep changing. I'm sure about that. My second point is, if I can take a cue from James Baker and slightly modify, then I would say there are 7 P's in planning, and that is proper prior planning prevents pitifully poor performance. So that's my, 7 P's, taking a cue from James Baker. My third point is, I was just scanning through my memories of Scandinavia, where I taught for a while, and I saw today that Sweden is considered as one of the most accessible countries in the whole world. Then I could relate that, yes, I could actually wayfind, my son could wayfind, and somebody was talking about his son going to the neighborhood school. Exactly so. They do not send their children 20 kilometers away in a school bus. My son used to cross the road, go to the school, and he was that old. We never felt that there's a traffic, how would he cross? Because everything was so organized. So that is accessible to me. My fourth point, I also checked that in the US, 1 in 8 persons are slated to be disabled in various ways. And some reports state that this can be turned into a very good opportunity, a business model, because if you be romantic, if you just talk about romanticism, that this should be done, then where is the money coming from? So you have got to, identify that whether it can make good economic sense. And I was just checking out that it actually can. It actually can. There would be organizations that would come forward if they understand that each product, the product design should be such that it is, accessible or similar things like that. So product design, equitable use, flexibility, simple, perceptible, what are the tolerance limits? If we can identify these points to them, then there would be so many companies making a beeline to make these products. And last, an optimism. When we talk about India, and we were just having on the sidelines a talk where we said that India is a multicultural, multifaceted, such a big country. Is it possible? I think it is. Because 20 years back, nobody thought that smoking can be banned in public places. It is banned. It is banned. Ranjan, you would know, you're from Bengal. We have seen that in our local trains, in our minibuses, in everywhere. People used to smoke. It's no more there. It has been done. Is it possible? Yes, it is possible. Because in the automotive sector, till about 5 years back, it wasn't mandatory to have, airbags. And it was not mandatory to have such stringent pollution controls just a few years back. But it has been made possible. So I think if we can mainstream it, accessibility or basic is a great idea and it is possible. So that is my note of optimism. I will now come straight to the first few slides. So this very interesting project, which is now on for just over a year, initiated with us and NIUA in October 2020. Then we had all these stages like the inception report, the status report, the analysis report, much like, hardcore research. We really tried to do all that. And then we had 2 facets to it. One was modifications to the URDPFI, that is some kind of a guideline for all planners whenever they want to do projections, want to do a planning or retrofitting, they refer to the URDPFI. So we took a very close look at what are the provisions in the URDPFI in the present form, what are the inclusions and insertions that are necessary, and we have submitted that to the ministry. So that was part 1. And the other part, which is we are talking of today, is the ICF, Inclusive City Framework. So they were the 2 prongs of our, work. So we had also just about last week done a pilot study in Delhi. So these are the stages that we have gone through. And this has been much highlighted in the first session. So I'm just going to cut it short. This is the vision that we look at. Vision for inclusive city should give a sense of security. My mother should feel she is secure. She doesn't have to, depend on me. Psychological comfort, economic independence. The maid should feel that she is empowered to go to the bank. She knows what it is. Decent quality of life, definitely. Feeling of self-worth. Now, this is an important point, we think, and we have been extensively. I was telling that even during these difficult times, we could actually reach out to not less than 256 respondents to take diverse opinion from them. Social acceptance. I see this in my IIT campus also. If you openly say that go take some counseling, you need counseling, the student takes a step back because you don't want to identify somebody that he needs counseling. It has to be done seamlessly. You cannot have a room saying counseling center and send your students because they get identified. That is not the way to include. So social acceptance and safety. Like I said, my son and we felt safe when he crossed the roads in Sweden, in a big city like Malmö. That's safety. So these were some of the initial points that I wanted to talk about. I will now invite Professor Hoymonti Banerjee, who has really spent so much of time in this, and why don't you come and explain from here?
Thank you, Professor Chattopadhyay, for the introduction. So I will just continue from here. So when we were working on these inclusive city framework, the first question that our team and NIUA, we were jointly thinking that who should be the target group? Whom do we include in this? So after a lot of deliberation and speaking to the experts, these are the target groups whom we thought that we should be considering. We have considered the functional limitations, that is functional disabilities, physical impairment, vision impairment, sensory impairment. Somebody, I think Ruchi, somebody in the morning session, I think you pointed out that about mental disabilities. Yes, absolutely. I mean, we have included that in this ICF, that the checklist that we have come up with, or the set of indicators, also try to look into the intellectual, functional or cognitive disabilities as well, and we have been able to actually get in touch with an autism school, and where we have talked to the caregivers of the students to understand their needs and priorities. So we have included them also. The elderly, children and women. Now, while we were developing the vision or the concept, we went through the various approaches of disability, how it has changed from a charity-based model which talked about desegregation, which talked about normalizing the PWD, treating them as less than normal, and towards a right-based model or a social model which moved from normalization to empowerment, sympathy to empathy. And then the recent models of ICEF, which talks about the personal factors, environmental factors, cultural factors, and also the capability approach, which talks about the increasing the overall well-being of person by providing them basket of opportunities. So a city should actually provide the opportunities to all. A city should empower all. So that was our vision. Now, 2020 IIT Kharagpur partnered with BASIC team NIUA to take up the task of mainstreaming inclusion into the guidelines and standards of city planning. And as Professor Chattopadhyay already said, that there were two components of this project. One was like URDPFI. URDPFI, the planners, we are all aware of what is URDPFI. So what we had done in URDPFI, though this is not a part of today's presentation, but I might mention it very briefly, that we have inserted, added, modified certain clauses in the URDPFI which are specifically targeted towards inclusion in planning, in urban planning. And now the inclusive city framework. Now, the inclusive city framework will have a dual purpose. The first is it will be assessment, a performance assessment of the existing cities in terms of universal accessibility. So it will actually give some kind of a scoring mechanism that how safe, inclusive or accessible is a particular city. We will explain how we have worked out a star rating system for giving scores, inclusivity scores to these cities. And of course, it can be used for the inclusive planning of the greenfield cities. So this was a very robust methodology which we had followed. In every step we had discussion with an NIUA team, we had reached out to the experts, we had reached out to the target group, we had reached out to the implementers and various other stakeholders in the process of inclusive city planning. and we have reviewed the all available guidelines, national level guidelines, standards in India, and also the global best practices. Now, these are the guidelines which we have referred to, which we have reviewed. We have also gone through the various international best practices. Now, from these systematic review of these guidelines and best practices, we identified certain components at the city level. We also referred to the existing legal backup, the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act 2016, and from there, combining this, we came up with the 6 sectors for interventions in urban system. What are these? First one is the housing, physical and social infrastructure. Second, the outdoor environment. Third is the livelihood, because that goes a long way for empowerment. Urban mobility and public transport, IT connectivity, digitization and citizen participation, tourism and recreation. Now, all these sectors are also in line with the 3 pillars of Sugamya Bharat Abhiyan, which in the previous session our Honorable Secretary Durga Shankar ji was referring to, like the 3 pillars that AIC has talked about, Accessible India campaign has talked about. Now, then after we decided more or less on the target sectors, we started reaching out to the people. Now, our survey was really an elaborate process. We had a 3-stage survey. First, we did a pilot survey, so that with the help of which we modified our questionnaire. Because the questionnaire, because we were reaching to the HSG, high support groups, they should be able to understand our questionnaire so that they could give us the right feedback. So that's for the first pilot survey which we conducted with some samples from every category, which helped us in modifying our questionnaire, making the questionnaire accessible first. Then we also reached out to the domain experts, government planning bodies, academics, professionals, service providers and NGOs to understand the bottlenecks, issues and challenges. Followed by the 256 face-to-face survey. Online survey really didn't work, because we had to explain them, we had to talk to them, we had to chat with them and make them comfortable and then take feedback from them. But however, we were successful. It was a very tedious process, and then we came up with these inclusive city framework. These are the certain things. It's a document is there. I'm sure it will be available soon in online. So these are some of the extracts that I'm going to talk about. Now, the UDIP, this my colleague and old friend Gaurav Raheja was mentioning today in the morning, that we have to Indianize it. Sahaj, Saman, Sanskritik, Sasta and Sundar. So these are the things which we have also, while preparing the checklist, we have referred to this. That the solution that we are providing, the recommendations that we are giving, are these culturally acceptable? Are these going with the image of the place as an urban designer, as a city planner? So then finally, this is our first outcome, that is the 6 sectors that we talked. Now, 6 sectors had 23 components. Now, I'm talking about measurement, I'm talking about scoring, I'm talking about rating. Our first step is the strategic accessibility analysis. So when I'm talking about measuring something, we need certain measurable indicators. So these 6 sectors are 196 measurable indicators. Now, we have also devised a mechanism for measuring this, because these indicators are of different types. Somewhere you get a binary response, yes or no. Somewhere you get a qualitative response, like say perception of safety is a qualitative response. Somewhere you get a response in percentage, like what percentage of city buses are accessible. So you have to compare apples and oranges and get everything to the same platform, so that we can come up with a proper scoring mechanism. And so we did that so that everything can be converted to the Likert scale, and we can come up with some figures with the help of which we can come up to which can infer something. There were indicators, like these are some examples of indicators. This I'm not going into much detail. The book will be having everything. Now, preparation of the inclusive city plan, how it can be used, or what is the purpose of this. So it can be used for urban retrofitting or redevelopment projects, sectoral plans and projects. It can be for a pan-city development, development plan or master plan, and also for greenfield city. And what's the focus? Focus is on accessibility to maximum number of urban spaces, services and systems. I repeat, that is what we want, is that all the urban spaces like the footpaths, the bus stations, the open areas, the services, the infrastructure, the physical infrastructure, social infrastructure, solid waste management is a service, or the urban systems, the process of paying off online property tax, that also needs to be accessible. And also the basic aim of improving the quality of life for all, especially the vulnerable groups, so which this focus, we moved on. Now these are the steps towards inclusion. We start with the accessibility, safety and inclusivity audit with the help of that elaborate 196 checklist. Then the setting of goals and the objectives for inclusion, plan formulation and plan integration, because the cities and the towns will be having the master plan ready, many of them, most of them, they will have the mobility plan ready. So how to have that component of inclusion in the existing plans? So that is very important, because you need not to start from scratch for every city. So how to integrate those components of inclusion or those particular checklists, that will be very easy, because since we have identified 6 sectors, so that sectoral inclusion sectoral integration is quite easy. Next will be project identification, and I would like to stress upon is, I think we are on the same board, Gaurav, that you also talked of this procurement, tendering and specification. So that is important here. So we have also included this, because we have to ultimately implement, as just now Chattopadhyay was saying, that we have to be practical, we have to give a way forward for the urban local body. So this can act as a very easy handbook or as a toolkit for them to adopt it and make their cities inclusive if they desire to. A phasing mechanism and feedback mechanism, a robust system of monitoring. Now this is the star rating I was talking about. Like we had we would be coming up with a huge set of data from 196 indicators, and data will be of different types, different types of responses. How to convert the responses into numerical score, we have given a mechanism that how it can be different 3 types of data, that is qualitative, quantitative as well as binary, how they can be converted into the numerical score. And then against each sector, depending upon the number of indicators, what could be the values. And this is the star rating system that we have proposed, like 5 star to 1 star. Above 50% we have considered 1 star, below 50% we have not considered any rating. So now what will be the benefit of this is that since a city which is being assessed based on that safety, accessibility and inclusivity, not only will it get an overall score, but it will also get a sectoral score. So that if the urban local body, chief of the urban local body decides to improve upon something, he or she would exactly have the idea that which is the sector that is lagging behind, which are the indicators, which are the particular indicators which require attention. So that was the purpose, so to make it as much as user friendly as possible, as handy as possible, so that it can be just be taken to the field. We thought of about prioritizing these, because we see that there will be certain short-term actions, there will be certain long-term actions, of course. Now, some actions or some recommendations will be highly prioritized, and some recommendations probably will not be of medium level priority, but easily doable. So we can always think about some immediate action like high priority, low current score, low resource requirement, because low resource requirement and low current score and high priority is the category 1, which requires immediate attention, and the long term maybe low to medium priority, low current score and high resource requirement. So that's how we can come up with a phasing mechanism, so that this can be decided that how to prioritize the projects. These are the stakeholders who in the process. Now we have given some idea about the implementation, like the proposed advisory forum for accessibility and inclusion at the district level. We have proposed a body whose function will be on advisory role to advise the urban local bodies and to carry out the periodic monitoring and evaluation. Next would be the inclusive city cell within the urban local bodies, which must have the one appointed full-time planner with knowledge or expertise in inclusive planning and the technical support staff. Now this is actually based on the feedback that we have got from one of the advisory workshop that we have conducted, where it was pointed out by many of the urban local bodies that there is some lack of the technical expertise, particularly in this field. These are the steps in which we have talked about the review and monitoring feedback through in-house and third-party audit, and this is how it goes on. Financing the model of inclusive city plan. Now, inclusion should be a cross-cutting principle for all municipal activities, and we propose a dedicated budgetary allocation for planning and implementing projects and programs for the vulnerable groups. This is some kind of a format for monitoring and reviewing of scores that we have proposed. Like say after the first round of strategic accessibility analysis, every sector gets a score. The current score, what is the targeted final score, what is the short-term target and long-term target. And so that with the help of this kind of a monitoring feedback, a periodic review is possible to see whether we are moving in the right direction. We did an advocacy workshop, 12th of November, where the disability officers and the city officials came. So, and they had identified a certain priority areas like social infrastructure, physical infrastructure, outdoor spaces. These are some of already highlighted areas where employment and is getting slightly on the lower score. Perceived bottlenecks were lack of trained manpower in the ULBs and funds. So they were equally considered to be lacking as per the ULB officials. These are the priority areas, transportation mobility being on the highest, followed by health and public amenities. We did a very recently, last week only, we did a pilot survey with our students. Now in Delhi, we reached out to several organizations. We reached out to Ranjanda, we reached out to the our TCPO, DDA, and we tried to taste this in Delhi. It is not yet complete, and we just show you some of the inferences that we have. We have also conducted a primary survey in some of the areas. Residential areas like DDA has some provision, but not much maybe concern with the private providers. Outdoor environment, we have studied, we have found out that maybe the areas of improvement. We have also seen the transportation, maybe Delhi Metro has done a couple of projects on accessibility. DTC has taken many initiatives, we were told, and also the other players. The amenities and facilities like the website of SCPD, the State Commission on Public with Disability, they have got a very elaborate monitoring and review form for the initiatives towards inclusion. That was very encouraging, and the annual, and they come up with a annual report so that which very specifically tells about the initiatives taken towards inclusion. Key issues we had identified: lack of the disaggregated data on vulnerable groups, inadequate capacity building and technical training, lack of sensitization amongst different stakeholders, absence of holistic approach for empowerment of vulnerable groups, unavailability of integrated approach in city planning and development. So these are the key issues which we had identified, and as it was told in the morning session that IIT KGP has come up with a 2 years partnership with NIUA. So what we look forward to, a suggested way forward, a certificate course on officials for urban local bodies for capacity building. Inclusive city, that is our dream to be added as an elective or a compulsory subject in the course. I think all of you would agree to it in the curriculum of planning and architectural schools. Sensitization at the school level, catch them young. So we already organized a painting competition with the students of DAV school in IIT KGP campus, and it was very successful, and publication of reading manuals for capacity building and sensitization. So that's all. I think I've slightly exceeded the time. I apologize for that.
Thank you so much, sir and ma'am. I will hand it over to Kundu ma'am to begin with the panel discussion, and I will request Professor Chattopadhyay to kindly take the place on dais.
Thank you, both the professors from IIT, for an excellent presentation. I had a very means it's maybe it's because of my ignorance. You talked about disability officers. So are they available at the district level, city level? Means I do not know.
Yes, yes, they are all available at the district level also.
Okay. Okay. And is there any connect between the city and the district in terms of
Sensitization is an issue. It's not well connected at the moment. Say, each state has got a state commissioner for person with disabilities. Now, the state commissioner per se has nothing much to do on the implementation part of it, so far as these things are concerned, which you discussed. State commissioner acts as a civil judge. It's a court he holds. And the discrimination, the rights, because it's no more simple thing, it's a right, 2016 RPWD Act. So whenever there is a violation, it is cognizable punishment. So the state commissioner acts as that, but it's also the duty of the state commissioner to see if the infrastructures and other things that we're talking about are implemented properly. So each state, they have the state commissioner, and under them each the district magistrates who are also the head of the disaster management. They have the data for all the persons with disabilities in the district, and each district they also have district officer to look after all this. They are in touch with the civic bodies, and they are supposed to implement this. This is the structure. But there is a lot of sensitization issue. And I have been, after I took over in last January, I have been going to each and every district, holding district level committee meetings and sensitizing the people, the police, the others. Unfortunately, this needs to be done very rigorously. And as suggested by the IT professors in their presentation, it needs to be added in the curricula of each and every planning architect schools, that they should include this. Right. So I would request the NIUA to take this up, and the government, we have a very favorable and good, far-sighted secretary now, and which can, you can, with the UGC and others, it should be in the curriculum, made absolutely compulsory.
Thank you. So, adding to what you said, I think this question I'm throwing up to all the panelists regarding the challenges that cities are facing in mainstreaming inclusion, basically in particular disability inclusion.
I will in the continuation like to say, because you see, I only ask a question to, we all know this, and during 2010 Commonwealth Games, when I was the principal commissioner in DDA for special projects, we did not have I did not have any knowledge what should be done. So I had to hire an architect and planner from abroad who knew about all this in DDA, and we had to get each and every dimensions and specifications, standard ones from the Commonwealth, countries. And then I started implementing those. Unfortunately, till date in the national capital, I only ask a question to myself and the august audience here, that even if a person with disability, any type of disability, if he or she has to do 10 things in a day, say go out of the house, go to a workplace or a school, college, from there he or she wants to visit the library, from there to a market, then she wants to go to a movie and then do some grocery shopping, some medical, core, and then coming back. Without any help, will a PWD, person with disability, be able to achieve? Will be able to perform this in the national capital? I'm not talking about Gaya or Ghaziabad. I'm talking about Delhi. Is it possible? So the answer is a no. In contrast with Asian cities, and not to talk about the Western cities, the Asian cities of Beijing, in China you go to Korea, you go to Seoul, or you go to Japan, it's possible. So we are lagging behind, not 100 years, 150, 200 years. Now, how to achieve? The implementation is the best, the most important part. And sadly, there are certain things which were implemented during the Commonwealth Games. Today they are not there. For example, we used to have very smart basque shelters, which was audio and visually, empowered. So a person with visual impairment could listen to the bus number such and such is coming from this place and would go to that place. And a person with hearing impairment would be able to see that. The bus number 502 is going, you can board that. And those days in 2008-9, we had about 3,000 odd buses in the Delhi Transport Corporation. And naturally, they're not all low floors, but we all retrofitted it. And after having come to this chair, I was telling the IIT professor when they came to my office a couple of weeks back, that I wrote a letter to the DTC chairman and the Honorable LG and told them to, next procurement of 3,000 odd buses should be all disabled friendly. So this sensitization is required, and we need to think, we need to close our eyes and think that we are one of the PWDs. How would we do our Delhi core? And accordingly, things should fall into place.
Thank you. May I ask Mr. Vashisht, what is your experience regarding the challenges cities are facing? Very briefly.
Yeah, sure. I think if you look at the policy, law itself, I see within the law, I've just noted down a few points, which is, I see the legal requirements that we have in the RBWD Act. In fact, we had a law in 1995 itself, which mandated accessibility. 2016, we had a law with a lot of teeth. But the challenge has been that the requirements provided in the law are not very, very realistic. 5 years, you need to make entire country accessible. That's the legal requirement. And in these 5 years, the 2 years is for services. But we have not spent any amount on the corresponding awareness, capacity building of implementing agencies or of various stakeholders. The challenges are that the consequences are not visible. What if I don't implement accessibility? What are the consequences? So they are not enforced effectively, and also they're not seen, they're not disseminated well in agencies who are going to implement it. Also in people, how they can probably be a part of this. There are no designated enforcement or agencies which are identified. So there is a law, it remains in the statute book, but nothing is happening on the ground to implement it. So there the problem lies. I think most of the cities, implementing agencies or people who are managing the cities, roads, mobility, infrastructure, they simply say, no, okay, that's fine. There is no, if I don't do it, sky is not going to fall upon me. So that's the current attitude. So this perhaps need to change.
Mr. Singh, your ideas?
To start with, it was a pleasant surprise that at least Delhi has a commissioner for PWD. I think most of us didn't even know about that.
Yeah,
and that's yet to happen in rest of the country, absolutely. So the main issue which exists actually is that we are not institutionalizing the whole process. We are dependent on individuals. So when individuals move out of the place, when they are not there, then things fall apart. So Mr. Srinivas was one of the panelists. He is from TCPO, and it's at least my suggestion that for a proper institutionalized approach, in case TCPO provides a guideline, then it's quite easier, then it becomes quite easy for the state governments to implement. There's not much debate about it going ahead. So TCPO needs to frame guidelines regarding this, which are simple to implement, not very elaborate, because once you make it very elaborate, then people know how to go about it. And what's happening with the current act, I am the chief town planner in Haryana, and what we do till now is, while approving the building plans, we just impose a condition. We refer to the section 44, I believe, and 46, which provides for accessibility, and we also ensure that the building plans incorporate it. But the presentation by Mr. Raheja, Professor Raheja, was quite an eye-opener that how those can be, not exactly what it is meant to be. So obviously sensitization, not just for the government, but also for the private sector, the architects, the entire ecosystem, I mean. So it's actually a huge ask, and apart from this, so these are the major challenges, and the solution, I believe,
We'll come
is,
to the solutions
yeah,
later.
So, yeah.
So, Mr. Srinivas, are you available? You're muted. We can't hear you. Sorry.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, can you hear me?
Yes. Yes. Please.
Thank you very much, NIUA, for giving me the opportunity. And Mr. PP Singh has rightly mentioned that TCPA should come up with the guidelines which are very simple to understand. But in the presentation of Hemanti, she had mentioned that IIT Kharagpur together with NIUA have already submitted the addendums and amendments to the URDP guidelines with regard to disability inclusion. That has been done very nicely. I mean, all the sections have been carefully examined, and they have made the provisions for disability inclusion. Wherever the sections they have incorporated, which will ensure the inclusion of disability provisions. Now the addendum or modification to URDP guidelines have been submitted to ministry. It's under the active consideration of Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. Hopefully we'll get the approval. The moment we get the approval, we are going to circulate to each state town and country planning department, development authorities, and urban local bodies. But let me tell you, the first question, what are the challenges that cities are facing in terms of mainstreaming inclusion? From Ministry of Housing and Urban point of view, we have actually circulated both the documents, model building bylaws, as well as harmonious, guidelines for barrier-free environment. Let me tell you, barring Lakshadweep, Sikkim, and Union Territory of J&K, all the states and UTs have incorporated the provisions of barrier-free environment in their respective building bylaws. And it has not been easy. We have been, pursuing, we have been, doing the necessary follow-up with all the state governments, and with a lot of difficulties, we could convince the state governments to incorporate, provisions of barrier-free environment. But the biggest challenge is that Mr. Singh mentioned about the approval of building plans, and while issuing occupancy and completion certificate, it becomes very much important. You need to do a sort of a certification where the buildings adhere to these barrier-free provisions. Now, the other challenge is that there are certain capacity issues. Once prior to issuance of occupancy completion certificate, normally urban local bodies depute the team of engineers or architects for joint site inspection. So we have to ensure that a person who is very well conversant with the very well conversant with the barrier-free environment, he needs to do necessary certification. So in this regard, of course, for million plus cities, not a big problem. We have been, consulting the Municipal Corporation of Delhi and Mumbai. They have they have streamlined the joint site inspection, and they do the certification. But at the same time, what about, the small and medium towns? That's a big challenge where we have to really work on that. But my another suggestion would be, while conducting the of course, occupancy completion certificate can be issued, but every 5 years we need to do some sort of an access, audit, wherein we can empanel experts. Like a lot of local bodies have gone for empanelment for architects, for structural engineers. So on the similar line, we can empanel the experts who have got the experience in, conducting the audit for barrier-free environment. These are the main challenges. These are my brief points. Further, I will add if any other question is going to be raised.
Thank you. In the interest of time, let me go back to another question. I would request the panelists to be very brief. What specific measures do you think are required to ensure that inclusion becomes an essential part of city planning in India? I think many of you have pointed out your suggestions, but still, if you could just, yeah.
You see, in 2005, the Ministry of Urban Development, Government of India, had issued a directive to each and every state with a timeline that by 2007, there has to be a body like this. In Delhi, then we constituted something called UTTIPEC, UTPEC.
Yeah.
The full form of UTPEC is Unified Traffic and Transportation Infrastructure Planning and Engineering Center. All the road owning agencies, the road could be in Delhi, it can be a MCD road, it can be a PWD road, it can be a DDA road, it can be an NHI road.
There are 21 road owning agencies in Delhi.
Yes. Not 21,
Yes,
but
I'm aware because I was part of the Delhi Finance Commission. Maybe I found out.
Okay, okay. I didn't know it's a news to me. I thought only 5, 6 of them are they're major. Thereafter, you have any type of transportation, like say DMRC, the railways. They'll all be part of it. And then we used to have a monthly meeting chaired by the Vice Chairman DDA or the Lieutenant Governor himself. And then the decisions taken in those meetings is a must for implementation by the respective agencies. In the next meeting, we would take on what were discussed and what were the actionable points and how much have been achieved. So till each and every state follows the guidelines MOUD issued in 2005 on this particular pattern, I think things will not be easy and smooth. We need to do that, and accordingly we can go ahead. That's the answer.
And another question very related is that how the city institutional framework could use the data to really come up with feeding to the framework which has been suggested.
I'm not sure what exactly the question refers to, because once the guidelines are in place, then they need to be implemented first of all. And the first priority should be that henceforth they need to be followed.
No, there are 196 indicators.
No, that's what I
yeah.
said. If we impose 196 right in the beginning, it would be almost impossible to implement, and we are planning to fail. So my suggestion would be that we prioritize among those.
Baby steps.
And we take the most important 5, 10, 15, easy to implement, most important, most immediate requirements. And we need to go in phases. So once we have done that, maybe the institutions are sensitized, the architects, the private sector is sensitized. Once they know what this is meant for, why it's important, then maybe we can do further additions to that. So that's one thing. Retrofitting is an entirely different challenge. For the existing buildings, if we need to incorporate those, then it's not that big a challenge for public buildings, because in public buildings already most of this would already be in place. For public streets, this may not be a huge challenge, but that I believe should be the second part of it. The first part should be that henceforth, whatever we are doing, that should be as per the fresh guidelines, and retrofitting should be our second aim once we have taken care of the entire environment regarding to fresh approvals. So, and data gathering is not an issue these days. I believe whatever the local agency is, they're all quite geared up. If we prepare a data set which is required and which is mandatory, I think that can be done. That's not much of a difficult proposition.
And if we go back to the handbook which was prepared at NIUA, one of the very major findings was that the share of disability is much higher among the poor. That means the slum
Obviously,
areas.
obviously.
So, yeah. So I think something also needs to be done in that direction, because while the city is being
Yeah.
planned,
Yeah.
if we
Yeah, so-
more often than not lose focus on the poor.
No, absolutely. So when we are talking about these 196 guidelines, we need to prioritize those first,
Right.
if that's the main priority. So that should be the guiding principle.
Mr. Vashish?
And also, can you, I mean, I'd request through NIUA and the MOUD, if the NBC, the National Building Code, could be, changed to this particular and include this, and corrigendum could be issued as per this particular guidelines of inclusive city framework, and that both the IITs have worked so closely with you, with your organization. So the NBC should be amended, and it should be circulated to all the states, and making it absolutely mandatory to be followed.
Yeah, but what happens with NBC, it's such a voluminous document and it's so complicated that I don't think any of the states are following it. Everyone has their own building bylaws to such an extent that TCPO had to issue a model building bylaws. So NBC is a very good document, but it has almost become an academic exercise because it's not being followed in totality by any of the states.
But the part of the NBCs, I remember an incident which I can share for knowledge of everyone, including the planners, very briefly. Fali Nariman gave us a call one day morning and said, next to my building where I stay in Delhi, there is a construction going on. They're demolished and they're constructing. They have not done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things as per the NBC. The first time, as you rightly said, Mr. Singh, it's a very voluminous and exhaustive document. But I had to pull it out. I was the principal commissioner at DD and working as the OSD to LG Delhi. So I pulled it out, and it came from none other than Fali Nariman. So I took it out, and then those points that he said, I took it, then I issued an order. So you have to do all that. And as per accordingly, the parking is an issue, a lot of things, inclusive cityness. It has to be amended. I mean, it has to be there, I understand. But they are utilized also by each and every town and city and the states. So I mean, that rest of the call could be by the MOUD.
Mr. Vashish?
Yeah, thank
Last
you.
words.
I think, yeah. See, NBC is a voluntary document, and building is a state subject. Many states have not adopted it. In form of border building bylaws, yes, there was some adoption. TCPO has just informed that many states have adopted, but most of the states have the document. It's not a very common uniform document that states have adopted. And especially for disability inclusion, most states are lacking because their documentation and the document on which they're relying, which is being implemented in that state, is differing from one ULB to the other. So that uniformity is, I think, needed, first of all, in the entire nation, that yes, there is one standard for entire nation, be it Delhi or be it a certain state or certain city in the state. That's something which is currently required. I also want to say on the data points. See, currently we do not have mechanisms to capture data on inclusion. Right now, for example, the data requirement is there a road, what width is the road, but the data requirement of whether the road is wheelable, whether the road has a continuous sidewalk, where there are curb ramps and the curb cuts, this is not at all there. So there is no data collection on those pointers. So basically we need to have data on these inclusion pointers also, otherwise the whole inclusion initiative will fall between these cracks. So we need to fill up those cracks within the system right now, and different states need to follow the uniform guidelines. One harmonized guideline has come, this has been updated. I'm sure this will feed into the NBCs, subsequently NBCs perhaps I'm sure is going to be improved upon and fresh guideline issued. But this still remains an issue. I just returned for access audits of about 4 districts in Tamil Nadu under the Accessible India campaign. And what we found was, the standards that we have did not actually, were not very focused on local issues. Now, I'll just give you one example. The standard requires that there should be a car parking, reserved car parking for persons with disabilities in front of all office buildings. Now, a BDO office building in that block, I spoke to a lot of people, they said none of the disabled person has a car. They have the scooty, adaptive scooties which are being issued by the state, and they have those, three-wheel cycles, and there was absolutely, the car concept, it does not exist there. So eventually all our guidelines that we are implementing in the states also need to probably localize, and it should have that local context. So I would rest there.
Thank you. Mr. Srinivas, any concluding
yeah.
remarks?
Yeah. Just, I would like to tell about, the public data. From our experience, we have been coordinating with Municipal Corporation of Mumbai and Delhi. And since they have, gone totally online building permission system, we are getting, information. And, especially you can get the categories of, the occupancy and completion certificates, categories of NOCs, and you can get the information that how many buildings have actually adhered to the provisions of, barrier-free environment. So similarly, so let me also tell your last question. I would like to spend 1 minute on that. What specific measures are required to ensure inclusion becomes an essentially part of city planning? I think cities have understood, the bottom-up exercise, the micro level, spatial planning strategies in the form of local area plan and town planning scheme. So I think when local area plan is insisting on redevelopment or retrofitting, a lot of things we can do for, disability inclusion. And once, the local area plan gets successfully implemented, that can be replicated to other parts of the city. I think, this is just beginning. I mean, we have identified 25 cities for preparing local area plan and town planning scheme. And some of the cities have already completed the draft report of local area plan and town planning scheme. Yes, from Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, I assure that the NIU IIT team, they have, suggested the amendments to the URDP guidelines. Once we get approval from the ministry, we are going to circulate to all states and UTs for their adoption in the, in the preparation of master plan process. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Srinivas, for your affirmative statement. We look forward to the next beginning.
Yeah.
It will be really a good start for cities to really understand and adopt and then implement. I think all three are very important. And I would also like to take this opportunity to thank all the panelists for taking out your time. And just very briefly, I would like to summarize my learnings today in the last 1.5 hours. I think the first thing which we need is capacity building and sensitization of all stakeholders, whether it's a parastatal, it's at a city level organization or state level, and also at the central. Students, as was rightly mentioned by Professor Heymanti, incorporation of accessibility guidelines in the planning courses, revision of the national building codes, and treating inclusivity from the perspective of all. Today, a person who is totally able to do everything for himself may not be able to do so tomorrow. So keeping that in view, I think we should all think and plan about that for all stakeholders. And lastly, I would like to mention that we also need to really bring in this initiative by linking with SDGs, because SDG 11.7 targets at this, especially to provide universal access to safe, inclusive and accessible green spaces. I think that is one very important thing which we need to keep in mind while planning cities. And also the city level budgets, I think that needs to be streamlined with these efforts. I once again take this opportunity to thank all of you for taking out your time, and Professor Subroto and Professor Heymanti for doing this excellent collaboration with us, and we look forward to learning from you in future. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am, for sharing your remarks. And I also thank all the panelists for taking out time today and joining us for this discussion. You may please take your seats in the audience. It was indeed an enlightening day, wasn't it? I'm sure we will be more informed. I'm sure we will be more informed as well as introspective about the tenets of inclusion, universal access, and safety. To begin the valedictory session, we will begin with a short presentation from our winners of Design It Accessible Challenge. Can I request the students from NOSPLAN to kindly come over?
Hello everyone, I am Ishita Saraswat
And I'm Anupriya Agarwal,
representing our team from SPA Delhi to present our project proposals on disabled friendly cities, Sahay for the Disabled. This study was developed during the NOSPLAN competition in January, Design It Accessible, which was held with partnership with NIUA. Sahay is an acronym for Spatial Aids to help increase accessibility for the disabled. The study was conducted online, hence the following limitations apply: sample size for the survey, site visit, time for data collection and processing. Before we begin, let me take you through the structure of the presentation. In section 1, we introduced the disability scenario in India, explored existing issues faced by persons with disabilities, and discussed existing interventions. In section 2, we showed the existing literature, including some international best practices and provisions on accessibility. We also conducted a primary perception survey about persons of disabilities and challenges they face in public places, and received about 40 responses from Tier 1 and Tier 2 cities across India. Now let's talk about the approach. We have seen a lack of integration in the existing policies which are also not linked directly to the spatial plans we have. There is also a need to focus on spatial and design proposals as lack of awareness among people leads to lack of sensitization towards persons with disabilities. It is because disabled people are not visible in the public spaces as they are just confined to their homes because our public spaces are not favorable for their movement and life. The Smart Cities mission offered an excellent opportunity to promote inclusion in urban areas with the smart infrastructure that we are going to develop soon. This is where Sahay initiative comes into the picture. The Sahay for Disabled initiative aims to integrate the current spatial plans with spatial solutions identified to help the disabled persons move around independently and freely in the city. The point of the initiative is to make aware the type of spatial solutions for achieving universal accessibility and mechanisms to integrate them with our existing plans. The methodology of Sahay involves the site selection, analyzing the site for issues and challenges, development of strategy, identification of proposals that come under spatial policies, design and integration mechanisms. To demonstrate our proposals, we selected Indore as a case study area. According to Census 2011, Indore district had observed an increase in disabled population from 2001 to 2011. Also, Indore has one of the most disability deprivation index in the state. The Smart Cities proposal for Indore, though mentioning about universal accessibility, do not provide us with any sort of spatial proposals for the same. For applying this initiative, we zeroed down to the ABD area selected in the city. The Sahay framework given here on the slide is formulated and used to assess the level of friendliness and the level of friendliness of the city towards the disabled person. Each element has 5 to 6 parameters on which 2 scores were created: level of criticality and rating. The level of criticality was based on need. Is the feature required there or not? And the rating was based on the existence. How good is it in the existing state? The score of each parameter was calculated as a simple product of both the above scores. The overall score should lie in the range of 100 to 300, 100 being the best and 300 being the worst. The score for ABD area of Indore was 224, nearing to the worst side of the scoring.
As there are very few disabled-friendly parks in India, we have chosen an existing park in Indore's ABD area to demonstrate the application of our proposal, Sahay Sthal. The Sahay Park is designed and categorized into 3 zones to separate different spaces. First, the active/learning zone. Second, the passive/relaxing zone. And third, the healing zone. Each zone serves a different purpose, and together they tap into all 5 senses of its visitors. That is, sight, smell, touch, taste, and hearing. The active zone includes spaces such as a play area, an open gym, and food kiosks. The play area comes with play equipment designed to engage all children and sensory play elements that incorporate touch. Bright rainbow colors have been used to attract children. The open gym has accessible exercise equipment. The semi-permanent stalls for food are there, along with a sitting area that makes the park lively, as well as a place for parents to sit and keep a watch on their kids as they play. The passive zone is where one can sit and lounge. It promotes smart benches that are already installed in other parts of Indore and get powered by solar energy. Wheelchair-friendly picnic tables are provided. And lastly, the healing zone. The healing zone contains a sensory garden that works on olfactory senses and a multi-purpose shed. The garden has fragrant flower plants, large planters with ornamental trees, big boulders, raised beds for vegetables and herbs to keep the interest of wheelchair users and walkers alike. The shed can be used for yoga, meditation, community gatherings, drawing classes, or just to sit and chat. Our second proposal, Sahay Sadak, promotes universally accessible streets that are well lit, accommodate different walking speeds, and are legible to all users, with particular attention to the needs of children, the elderly, and people with disabilities. The major interventions are green urban furniture, tactile paving strips, bioswales, and motion sensor street lighting control systems. Our proposal for junctions addresses street safety concerns by using the existing street design and traffic calming methods that provide more time and space for vulnerable users. Visual cues such as road markings painted on streets communicate where pedestrian space transitions into bicycle or vehicular space. Curb extensions are given to shorten the crossing distance and protect pedestrians waiting to cross. Here, we also wanted to make aware of some spatial policies on universal accessibility. For example, integrated transportation facilities provide accessibility for all and are also affordable and drive sustainable and inclusive growth. Urban policies must address gaps in accessibility in public spaces. Social equity requires that the costs of accessible transportation and basic public services shall not be borne entirely by those who require the services. Flexible livelihood options must be made available along with appropriate bylaws for inclusive planning.
On the left-hand side, you can see the integration of Sahay proposals with the Smart Cities framework. The Sahay projects can be prepared at project level and development level by respective departments. The Citizens Forum can be used to inform people about the initiative and create awareness about the proposals for disabled persons. Implementation and O&M agencies can help implement the Sahay initiative, like the Indore Municipal Corporation or Indore Development Authority in our case, and certain parastatal agencies and NGOs. The right-hand side shows an approximate costing of our proposal on Sahay Sthal and Sadak for the city of Indore. The approach methodology is scalable to a lower as well as a higher scale. As we can see from the framework, it can be implemented to any sort of scale we have at an urban level. It can be attached under any smart city governance structure. The design elements are widely accepted and fall under the standard universal design guidelines. The technological recommendations are adaptable and suitable pan-India. The overall Sahay initiative is solution-specific rather than being context-specific.
We would like to end our presentation with a thought-provoking quote by Chen Guocheng. He said, "How a society treats its disabled is the true measure of a civilization." Thank you.
We would also like to show an experimental video that we did in lieu of the real surveys that we could have done in the city of Indore. Just give me a minute.
This video is a short social experiment that we
ये वाली ना
This video is a short
फोटो क्यों नहीं लगाई इसकी
This video is a short social experiment that we conducted to assess our spaces in terms of accessibility. One of the students was asked to sit and travel on a wheelchair from one end of the street to the other. At many places, the person sitting on the wheelchair needed assistance, making him dependent on others. Independent movement is limited due to lack of proper ramps in public spaces or even simple curbs to move from the street to their respective sidewalks. Just imagine, every day, hundreds of persons with disabilities think to move out and explore or even go to work. They want to feel independent, yet they are forced to be either confined to their homes or just be dependent on someone because our spaces do not welcome them. Despite vast differences in financial and social capital, the experiences of people with physical disabilities are remarkably similar. The government is trying to take steps to address these challenges and slowly improve accessibility in infrastructure and transportation. However, comprehensive changes are required to both enhance inclusivity in education and address the larger phenomenon of social indifference to the struggle of Indians living with disabilities.
realized how it feels to be a disabled person being on a wheelchair. So my experience was, firstly, there were many things like I had a ramp, we had stairs, we had other special things which had to be there for a disabled person, but there were some parts where it felt something like an obstacle. Maybe it was something with the potholes, or maybe something not much spaces. I know they have created such disabled friendly designs, but it is still hard for a person on a wheelchair, as my opinion. That's it.
That's all. Thank you for having the patience. And I guess this video sums up the idea of sensitization towards students, how the student felt, how it feels to be on a wheelchair. So thank you.
कॉपी नहीं करा रखी कॉपी तो नहीं हो रही
Good evening, everyone present here. So I'm Abhishek Luke. I'm the Vice President of NOSPLAN, Organization of Students of Planning. So I'll be presenting the work done by the runner-up team, the team of School of Planning and Architecture, Vijayawada. They could not be present here, so I'll be presenting their work in a short manner. So this is the introduction to the study. So they talked about city profiling and their main concepts, the different types of disabilities that they encountered, and then coming on down to the proposals, interventions, etc. So this is about the city profiling. They have chosen Kochi as a city to present their work. So this is a brief city profile, and what are the difficulties that the disabled people face in that city. So this is the whole concept of barrier-free environment, so that it supports the freedom of movement of all individuals, irrespective of their ability to move around. And then they have talked about the types of disability that they have encountered in their proposals. So they have encountered all the 4 disabilities of touch, see, hear, and speak. Then the different parameters that they have used to assess these disabilities and work on them. This is the short side context that they have chosen a road to see how disabled friendly it is. So this is a short analysis of the parameters of accessibility. So they have used universal accessibility as a parameter, the different parameters such as barriers, headings, crossings, the presence of subways and foot over bridges, curbs and ramps, sanitation, toilet facilities available for the disabled people, as well as sidewalks and footpaths. So they're given different numbers to these parameters, and then finally selected 2 points that needs the most interventions and are highly vulnerable to these environments. And these are some of the principles of inclusivity that they have addressed. So they are saying that firstly it should be accessible and usable, this designs, and should be human centric and should follow a down to top approach, not a top to down approach in any planning intervention. And these are the types of proposals that they have given in their presentation. So they're talking about 3 basically types of proposals that are minimal interventions, moderate, and then finally extreme interventions. So when they're talking about the proposal, they're talking about the width of the footpaths, the continuity of the footpaths. There should be ramps and lowered facilities for the people who are on wheelchairs. And also there should be the bollard spacing should be taken into consideration while we plan these types of intersections or roads. apart from these, there should be clear and sufficient space for these for disabled people to walk around, or maybe, to give their proper facilities for them. As well as they are also proposed biodegradable, barrier-free public toilets, as well as different curb ramps, and also a concept of wheelchair for rent for people who could not afford it. Also, then they're talking about proposals such as tactile pavings and talking city, where they're talking about using digital platform and integrating with the spatial platform. And that could be a very advanced and new way that we could help deal this situation. And then they have talked about different boards that are used in countries abroad, and also railings with braille gravings on them, so that blind people can touch them and understand. So apart from that, they are talking about how to create revenue so that these proposals could be implemented at a site level or maybe on ground. So they are talking about generating revenue through advertising different panels and different on these near these facilities in order to create revenue. Then they are talking about some organization structure that should be implemented in all the state or the ULBs. And then they are finally talking about the financial budget for the proposal that they have given for Kochi city, and what is the estimate budget for different sections. Like they have included the capital cost, the contingency cost, and finally O&M cost for 1 year. Then they have taken also the monetary benefits into account, and then finally given that they have calculated with an IRR of 14% over the 10 years. So they are saying that there are economic benefits as well as social benefits for this project. And then they're talking about implementation, which is, I believe, the most important part of any project. Not just the proposals, but also the implementation is important. So they're talking about how this implementation mechanism would work, from the construction stage to involving public and the people into the planning stage, and then finally implementing it with the help of government agency and ULBs. And then after implementing, taking feedback and improving upon those feedbacks, and the relevance to the sustainable development goals. So they have jotted down 5 goals that are very relevant to this proposal. So this is the presentation, and at the end they said the slogan of the ministry that says Sabka Saath Sabka Visaas. So development for one and development for all should be the motto in all these planning proposals. Thank you very much. So I would request the third prize winner to come up.
Good evening. I do understand that we have a time constraint, so I'll be as quick as possible with my presentation. So the city that we had chosen, just a sec. Okay. So the city that we had chosen was the city that we had chosen for our work was Imphal city. Now we've been talking about inclusion since morning, but we also need to analyze this fact that Northeast is not a very included part of India. Like if we're talking about it, it's a part of India, but we kind of tend to not include it in most of our planning aspects. So we thought that why not look into this aspect of this aspect as inclusion as well. So that's why we took Imphal city, the capital of Manipur. From the previous 2 presentations, I believe we understand that we are trying to have innovative and feasible solutions for a smart city to make more inclusive and friendly, to make them more inclusive and friendly for disabled sections of the society. We followed a similar approach where we had the first objective to conceptualize what disability is. Then we went on to the literature study of what smart cities proposing, UTPEC guidelines are proposing, the master plan and the state policies. And finally, we went on to, so we took advantage of what we had done in our studio. As a studio project, we went to Imphal as a local area planning project. So that's where we took our data, major data from. And we also wanted to know that if we can use our basic data of a local area plan, local area survey into what a for disability as well. And finally, we went on to give the proposals for the same. So I would just skip this part for a while. If we look at the city profile of Imphal, Imphal is an administrative, cultural and commercial political center of Manipur. It has a population of 268,000 as per the census of 2011, and it has been growing in the northeast and northwest direction, and it has been restricted by the hills. The area that we had chosen was a CBD area, Central Business District. The reason that we had chosen this area is because we feel that if an area is open or has less congested areas, it's much easier to give planning proposals. But in a CBD area, say for people living in Delhi such as Chandni Chowk, giving such proposals it can be more difficult. So that's why we chose this area, which is predominantly commercial and PSP, the public semi-public, having a density of 125 persons per hectare. The area was the area is spread across 70.1 hectares, and this is the CBD area. The area has highlights as a polo ground and the Ema market, which is the main attractions of this area. I'll just come to this. Okay. If we look at the secondary analysis of the area, we see that 41% of men are facing the disability, and 36% of women are facing disability. A similar proportion is also seen in children, wherein 23% of children are also facing disability. If we look at the secondary analysis, we see that the type of impairment which is maximum here is either in seeing or either in seeing or in movement. And if we look at the percentages wherein the government is helping the people, it's only 11% of the people who are disabled and are receiving funds from the government. We also tried to find that how many people who are disabled and are accessing public spaces are easily able to access. So out of the people who are, we had 80% of the people did not access any of the public places, and only out of them 50% were facing problems using it. We did kind of an accessibility and a functionality analysis for the same, wherein we were trying to analyze how accessible the entire area is. So if we look at the chart on the left, we see that only that based on this, 54% of the area comes under highly accessible. Now, this is highly accessible for a normal person, but a person with a disability, it can be even less. So that is why that's an issue which we are facing here. We also tried to analyze the preference of people. How do they walk on footpaths or do they walk on the carriageway? So in an area such as the local area which we had chosen, most of the population was specifically using the carriageway, as footpaths was covered with vendors. So that makes it even more difficult for a disabled person to access it. The major issues that we identified here was that low accessibility and the ease of movement is also a problem in the public transport, in the public buildings. Even after having a disability certificate, only 20% of the population was able to receive any kind of help permit, and there is an absence of design considerations in Imphal for the disabled. There is also very less social infrastructure for the disabled people, so that is something which we need to cater. The major proposals which we did were on different aspects which we had taken. We considered specific literature such as the master plan proposals, the smart city proposals. We took into account our objectives. We decided on which level does this has to be done. Does it have to be done at a local area level, at building level, or at a city level? And lastly, we had a management, policy level, and design level proposals. So our proposals were specifically regarding the design, wherein we were focusing on development of major facilities on the site for making them more inclusive for the people. Now, Ema Kathal is also a place wherein it's more of a market where women come up and sell clothes and every sort of thing, and there is where the major shopping happens. I will be showing proposals for the same, and that is a proposal area. And lastly, we have a polo ground redesign, wherein we would like to use the polo ground more inclusively for the disabled people. we look at the proposals for the cross-section design. So ramps which we had given are with the slope not more than 8% wherever required, with the railing, and with the current where the current footpaths are not 3.1 meter, we propose them to be 3 meter plus 1.2 meter, whereas 3 meters is for a vendor and 1.2 meter for pedestrian plus wheelchairs. So that is what we had for the cross-section. Now this is the picture of an EMA kettle, and the design is what we had proposed for the same. So if you look at the picture, if we could just introduce the railings into it, it would be much easier for a disabled person to access the place. So that is what we had kind of proposed, that along with the tactile pavings and everything, we must also look into account have railings into the same. Then the design for the bus stops should also be considered so that public transport is more accessible to the disabled. Lastly, we had the proposal for the polo ground, wherein we could conduct workshops for training disabled people into sports, as sports for disabled has also been an important area which could encourage them. The slopes and ramp not more than 8%, hand railings to be given, and the first 2 stands must be allotted to the disabled friendly. So these could be smaller areas which could be making, like, this is more of a smaller level of a thing. Like if we are talking about a policy since morning, we can actually try and implement it in a local area level. That is what we were trying to do for Imphal. Thank you.
Thank you, and once again, congratulations to all the winners from NOSPLAN. Before we move forward, since we are commemorating the International Day for Persons with Disabilities on December 3rd, that is tomorrow, in appreciation of their invaluable contribution in creating new inclusive India, we would like to present a token of gratitude to our sign language interpreters, Nitika Gupta and Jyotika Das, who have been here with us the whole day. May I request Ajay Suri to kindly do the honors. May I request Dr. Devolina Kundu to kindly do the honors. Thank you, everyone. I now invite Ajay Suri again on the dais to conclude the day with his closing remarks and the final vote of thanks.
Thanks, Mayura. It's really been a very long day, but I assume on behalf of everyone that it's also been a very engaging day. Well, it's my honor and privilege to conclude the National Workshop on Mainstreaming Disability Inclusion to Transform Urban Futures. It has been an enriching and engaging session. I have a happy realization today. We are working in the right direction and we are not alone. The active participation has really made this workshop truly enriching. I am pleased that we have had such thought-provoking discussions throughout the day, as well as launching 2 of the transformational documents. I'm certain that the harmonized guidelines for universal accessibility in India and the inclusive city framework will be pivotal in the envisioned transformation of mainstreaming disability inclusion into India's urban futures. I would not like to sum up, since it's been a long day and a lot of discussions happened, but a few highlights from the 3 technical sessions. In the technical session 1, the discussion moved around a few key points. 1, the sheer complexity of the issue and the need to be addressed at multiple scales. It's intersectional, covers various sectors, the scale is too big, but we need to address the challenge. Secondly, we need to think beyond policy and guidelines and focus on implementation. Third, the development of frameworks is only a starting point, and cities will need prolonged hand-holding support, which basically means we need to deepen our engagement and also widen the scale at which we are working. And lastly, the technical session 1 highlighted the fact that fundamental changes in institutional framework and governance needs to be addressed to enhance accountability and approach the legal, policy and institutional framework within which the ULBs are embedded. The technical session 2 focused on the need for change in the way we approach and perceive universal accessibility and inclusion. It highlighted some key concepts of equity in access to resources, the line of barrier, inequity existing in the Indian cities, and the need to realize our responsibility at individual and professional levels towards the transformation to reach the goal of City for All. It also presented a 7-fold approach propagated by BASIC as the way forward. Dr. Kundu had summarized the technical session 3. I borrow her words that we need sensitization and capacity building of all stakeholders. There is the need to incorporate accessibility guidelines in course curriculum. There is the need for revision of the National Building Code. And lastly, there needs to be a strong linkage between the accessibility agenda and the Sustainable Development Goals, and these should guide the city planning and budgeting processes. This workshop has also showcased our works in the form of a wide array of frameworks, knowledge products, audit reports, and much more. We are hopeful that they will be helpful and informative for all of you. In the end, I would like to share what were my honest expectations from the workshop today. I hope to find avenues to collectively work together, mainstreaming inclusion to transform the urban futures, and find innovative ways to address and respond to the inequalities faced by vulnerable groups, especially persons with disabilities, children and women, and for mainstreaming inclusion within the urban agenda. I sincerely hope this workshop is just the beginning, and we all will continue to take this commitment forward towards tangible, action-oriented interventions and projects to realize a more just and equal urban ecosystem for everyone. Before I start thanking everyone, I would also like to leave all of you with a thought. What was presented today, let's say the harmonized guidelines, were for improving accessibility to the built form. I believe it's just the beginning. We need to build the capacity of the city stakeholders to use these guidelines for project preparation, design, and implementation. But what is more challenging in Indian cities is that informality is not an exception but a norm. We have islands of prosperity within the sea of informality. How do you ensure accessibility within an informal settlement? How do you dovetail your harmonized guidelines to informality? I believe 90 to 95% of the house construction happens in the informal sector, not in the informal settlements, but informal sector led by household initiative. So neither is an architect engaged, nor are trained contractors engaged by the households. How do they make their house more accessible for family members with disabilities? What is the solution on offer for such households. Currently, they use the jugaad, as we call in India. But we need more than a jugaad to really have effective impacts on ground. This is a challenge which we endeavor to address over the coming years in partnership with all of you. In the end, I would like to thank all the dignitaries, panelists, and participants who joined us today in person or virtually. I also extend my sincere gratitude to the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs for supporting us in mainstreaming the dialogue, our partners in change, FCDO, for their continued support in all our efforts. We hope to continue to partner with you to address the challenges facing us for effective impacts on ground, which actually change the lives of the people, the lives of the persons with disabilities, children, and women. I would also like to thank all our partners and its team for their immense support. I would like to especially thank vibrant and active partners in change from all the pillars of quadruple helix. Why do you always give me the tongue twisters? Including IIT Roorkee, IIT Kharagpur, GDI Hub, World Enable, United Nations, Saksham, G3ICT, Levadis, and our action partners, the Varanasi Smart City Limited. I would fail in my duty if I do not place on record my appreciation of the efforts by my colleagues at ICC and the BASIC program, particularly Utsav, Kanika, Mayura, Veronica, Smriti. Also, my colleagues from the design, communication, and IT teams for their time and support. And lastly, my support to the sign language interpreters as well. Kindly share your comments and suggestions in the feedback form to be shared on your registered IDs, that's the email IDs. Please stay connected with us through our social media channels on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Hope to see you soon, engaging in another vibrant round of discussions. Thank you very much and have a nice evening.